The warning was delivered without ceremony. No fleets paraded. No thunderous declarations shook the stars. It was a single human transmission, polite and precise. Stay away from Terran space. This is not a negotiation, nor a threat. It is a boundary. Cross it, and consequences will follow. You have been warned. The galaxy roared with laughter. In the Dominion halls, admirals smirked. On neutral trade stations, merchants toasted to human arrogance. Even scholars dismissed it as posturing from a backwater world that had survived on luck and stubbornness. One warning: entire empires had risen and fallen on threats more substantial. Yet, tucked behind that calm voice, something unsettled the wiser few. Empires rarely whisper when they mean war. Humanity whispered. Captain Marcus Hale leaned back in his chair aboard the Resolute, fingers wrapped around a steaming cup of black coffee. The ship hummed with restrained energy, its crew working in quiet efficiency. He looked nothing like a galactic terror. His uniform was crisp but unadorned, his posture relaxed, his eyes carrying that curious human warmth that always seemed to unsettle aliens more than snarls. "Think they'll take us seriously this time?" asked Commander Lien Harper, stepping beside him with a datapad. Marcus sipped slowly, savoring the bitter taste before answering. "Not a chance. They'll think we're bluffing. They always do." Harper raised a brow. "You sound almost disappointed." "Not disappointed," Marcus said, setting his mug down. "Anticipating. Like watching someone about to stick a fork in an outlet. You know how it ends, but you can't look away." Harper snorted, shaking her head. "Only you could compare galactic politics to household electrocution." "It's relatable," Marcus said with a shrug. "That's what counts." Across the galaxy, the Dominion Council convened. 10 species sat in towering seats of silver and stone, their voices sharp with arrogance. "The Terrans dare draw borders as if they own the void," hissed Varric, a scaled warlord whose people had toppled star kingdoms for sport. "They forget we command the strongest armada in known space." A more cautious voice rose from Elder Thal, whose people lived long enough to remember ancient wars. "You mock, but humanity's history is not trivial. They fight differently, quiet until the knife is already in the ribs." Laughter drowned him out. "Knives? We have fleets," another sneered. So it was decided, the Dominion Armada would cross Terran space. Not for resources, not for conquest, but to humiliate a species that dared to speak with such composure. News of the decision rippled outward. On fringe worlds, taverns filled with chatter. "Humans think they're wolves," a trader laughed, downing purple liquor. "They're more like stray dogs barking at caravans." Others whispered differently. A Xyrillian merchant, long-lived and careful, muttered, "Dogs with teeth can still kill." Back aboard the Resolute, the bridge buzzed with new reports. The Dominion Armada was mobilizing. Harper looked up from her console. "They're actually doing it. 200 ships, heavy carriers, dreadnoughts, the works. All headed for the line." Marcus leaned forward, lacing his fingers together. "Predictable." Lieutenant Carr, the youngest officer, frowned. "Sir, with all due respect, what if we can't stop them? That's the largest armada we've ever faced." Marcus turned, meeting the young man's eyes with steady calm. "Lieutenant, when you play poker, do you show your cards too early?" "No, sir." "Good. Then trust me, we've been holding ours for decades." Carr nodded, still unsure, but the quiet confidence in Marcus's tone carried more weight than any tactical briefing. Later, in the officers' lounge, the mood shifted between nervous chatter and forced jokes. Someone asked why humanity hadn't simply begged for allies. Marcus, seated at the corner with his coffee, finally answered. "Allies fight for favors. Neighbors fight for land. Only fools fight for lines. And we're the biggest fools in the galaxy, because we mean it when we draw one." The room went quiet, a chill running through even hardened officers. Back in the Dominion Council, plans unfolded with drunken arrogance. Maps of Terran space lit the chamber, red lines drawn as if already claimed. Admirals spoke of glory. Generals boasted of breaking human resolve within a single cycle. And still, Elder Thal whispered, "They warned us once. Once is enough." But no one listened. In neutral space, alien observers sent reports back to their governments. Some scoffed, eager for spectacle. Others shifted uneasily, recalling older human wars, battles where smaller fleets had destroyed larger ones, not through strength but through unorthodox precision. Humanity did not fight fair. And perhaps that was what made their warning dangerous. On the Resolute, Harper stood with Marcus at the observation deck, staring at the endless dark. "Do you ever wish they'd listen?" she asked softly. Marcus chuckled. "No. If they listened, we'd never get to prove we weren't bluffing." She gave him a look. "That's terrifying." "That's human," Marcus replied, sipping his coffee as stars glimmered indifferent around them. The stage was set. Across councils and war rooms, fleets mobilized, arrogance swelling like a storm cloud. In Terran space, calm preparations continued. Humans did not raise their voices. They did not bluster. They only waited. Because one warning had been given. And humanity never repeated itself. The Dominion Armada crossed the Terran line with fanfare. 200 ships emerged from slipstream, formations glittering like a swarm of metal predators. Carriers stretched like cities in motion, dreadnoughts pulsed with shield energy, destroyers bristled with cannons. To most species, it was a sight to humble entire civilizations. To the Dominion, it was proof that humanity's warning was a joke. On the bridge of the Vorath Prime, High Admiral Korak reclined in his throne-like command chair, his scaled crest glowing faintly under the artificial lights. "Transmit message to all channels," he ordered, voice thick with arrogance. A young officer obeyed. Across the void, the Dominion proclamation roared. "Terran space is now under Dominion oversight. Resistance will be met with annihilation. Consider your warning dismissed." Laughter echoed through the Admiralty decks. But out in the void, silence answered. No fleets scrambled. No planetary defenses activated. The first planets along the Terran border appeared dark, uninhabited, dusty colonies abandoned decades ago. Admiral Korak sneered. "Empty husks. They bluffed with ghosts." "Sir," one of his tactical officers said, claws tapping nervously at his console. "Readings suggest structures below the surface. Massive ones." Korak waved him off. "Old bunkers, relics of a paranoid species. Useless against us." Still, unease prickled at the edges of the crew. The silence of Terran space felt less like weakness, more like waiting. Back aboard the Resolute, Marcus Hale studied the incoming reports with a calm smile. "The fish have taken the bait," Harper said, leaning over his shoulder. "They always do," Marcus replied. His eyes lingered on the fleet's formation. Perfectly symmetrical. Perfectly confident. Carr, standing at the tactical display, muttered, "They look unstoppable." Marcus chuckled softly. "That's the trick, Lieutenant. The stronger they look, the harder they fall. Confidence makes them predictable." Harper frowned. "And us?" "Unpredictable," Marcus said, rising from his seat. "That's our edge. We don't fight wars the way they expect. We end them before they understand what happened." At the edge of the Terran system known as Halcyon 7, the Dominion Armada halted. Korak stood, gesturing at the barren world below. "First blood is ours. Level it. Show them their line is dust." Weapons charged, beams of stellar fire lanced downward. The surface cracked, oceans boiled, and firestorms consumed the skies. The fleet roared in triumph. But then the planet answered. From beneath shattered crust, titanic doors split open. Silos, hidden for generations, rose from the ashes. Launch platforms awakened, spitting missiles laced with exotic warheads. Dozens, then hundreds, tore into the heavens. "Sir!" the tactical officer shouted. "Incoming, too many signatures to track." "Raise shields." Korak barked. The first wave hit like thunder. Missiles detonated in controlled bursts, not against hulls, but around them. Space twisted, gravity buckled, and ships were slammed into one another by invisible hands. Dominion destroyers collided, crumpling into wreckage. Fighters spun helplessly into carrier hulls. The second wave struck true, warheads slicing through shields, carving holes in dreadnought armor. In moments, 20 Dominion ships were reduced to burning debris. On the Vorath Prime, chaos erupted. They set a trap. Impossible, this world was dead. Korak roared, claws gouging his armrest. Regroup. Form defensive lines. But it was too late. The trap had only begun. From the shadow of Halcyon's second moon, Terran warships decloaked. Sleek, angular vessels slipped into view, their hulls black against the stars. Smaller than Dominion cruisers, they moved like predators, fast, precise, merciless. Terran fleet signatures detected. The sensor chief screamed. "How many?" Korak demanded. The officer's frills flattened. 30, sir." Korak blinked. 30? Against 200. "Yes, sir." A pause. "And they're advancing." On the Resolute, Marcus clasped his hands behind his back. "Signal the fleet. Target carriers first. Cut off their spawn, and the beasts will choke." Harper relayed the order. Carr hesitated. 30 against 200, sir, are we really? Marcus interrupted, voice calm but sharp. "Lieutenant, never count ships. Count mistakes. They've already made 2, crossing the line and underestimating us. That's all we need." The Terran fleet moved. Railguns fired hyperdense slugs at near-light velocity, piercing Dominion shields as though they were paper. EMP bursts shattered communications. Stealth drones infiltrated enemy formations, projecting false sensor echoes until ships fired blindly at allies. A Dominion carrier tried to retreat. Its engines tore apart as a single Terran missile slipped past its shield envelope and detonated with surgical precision. "Impossible!" Korak bellowed. "How are they breaching our defenses?" His science officer whispered in terror. They're not breaching. They're ignoring them. Their weapons don't fight our shields. They go around." Korak froze, realization dawning too late. Humanity had not built weapons to overpower Dominion technology. They had built weapons to sidestep it entirely. In the Dominion Council chambers light years away, news feeds crackled with disaster. Admirals shouted over one another, demanding explanations. Elder Thal only closed his eyes and whispered, "I warned you," they said once. Back in the Halcyon system, battle raged. Dominion formations fractured as ships turned inward, confused by phantom readings. Terran ships darted between them like wolves among cattle, striking, vanishing, striking again. On the Resolute, Harper exhaled slowly. "It's working. They're crumbling." Marcus gave a small, grim smile. "Of course they are. Armies that fight for pride always do." Hours later, the void fell silent again. Where 200 Dominion ships had entered Terran space, fewer than 50 remained intact, limping back toward the slipstream gates. The rest floated as wreckage, burning hulks scattering light across the black. On the Vorath Prime, Korak slumped in his chair, scales dull with shock. His once mighty armada was gone. The warning had not been a bluff. It had been law. The Resolute drifted at the edge of the battlefield, Terran fleet intact, losses minimal. Carr finally broke the silence. "Sir, what do we tell the galaxy?" Marcus picked up his coffee cup, still warm, still half full. He sipped, unhurried. "Tell them nothing," he said quietly. "We already told them once." And with that, the Terran fleet vanished back into the dark, leaving only wreckage and silence as proof that humanity had meant every word. The wreckage of Halcyon still smoldered when the news reached the stars. Survivors of the Dominion's Grand Fleet stumbled back through slipstream, hulls cracked, crews broken, command structures shattered. Out of 200 warships, barely 4 dozen limped home. Their transmissions were incoherent. Shouts, warnings, fragments of disbelief. The mighty Dominion, undefeated for centuries, had been torn apart by 30 Terran ships. For most of the galaxy, it was unthinkable. On the Dominion capital of Vorath Prime, the High Council convened in emergency session. The chamber buzzed with panic. They had no right, snarled Councillor Vera, her spines rattling. A minor species. One world, one fleet, daring to humiliate us. Minor? Hissed Elder Thal, voice dry as dust. You mistake silence for weakness. I told you, their warning was not a plea. It was a line. You crossed it. Admiral Korak appeared on the hollow dais, scales dull, eyes bloodshot. His voice cracked as he spoke. We fired first. They did not respond with anger or negotiation. They responded with precision. Every move we made, they anticipated. Every defense, they bypassed. They fought not like warriors, but like hunters. The chamber fell still. Hunters. The word carried weight. Across the galaxy, reactions spiraled. Some species laughed, dismissing it as Dominion propaganda meant to excuse failure. Others whispered that humanity had awakened old weapons buried since their near-extinction wars. A few wise civilizations said nothing at all, choosing silence over foolish commentary. But curiosity always outweighed caution. On the diplomatic station Vaoris 5, a council of neutral observers debated furiously. The insectoid Drassics clattered mandibles in excitement. 30 ships. Against 200. Imagine the technology, if we could trade for it. They will not trade, interrupted a cold aquatic envoy from Trelanear. They warned us once. We ignored it. They answered in blood. Do you think they bargain with scavengers? The hall grew uneasy. Humans had not spoken since the battle. They had not gloated, threatened, or claimed victory. The silence unsettled more than any declaration could. Back aboard the Resolute, Marcus Hale read through intercepted broadcasts. Harper leaned on the console beside him. They're panicking. The Dominion is bleeding prestige. Half the galaxy thinks they're finished. Marcus smiled faintly. Good. Fear is louder than any fleet. Carr frowned. Shouldn't we clarify? Make demands? Let them know where we stand. Marcus shook his head. We already made demands. One warning. We don't repeat ourselves. The galaxy can interpret silence however it wants. That's the trap. Harper arched a brow. Trap. Of course, Marcus said, sipping his ever-present coffee. When they don't know what you'll do next, every possibility becomes a threat. And fear will do the heavy lifting for us. Meanwhile, the Dominion licked its wounds. Korak faced tribunal, stripped of command, his failure a public spectacle. Yet even as blame circled, none dared suggest a second incursion. Not yet. But politics thrived on pride. They cannot be allowed to dictate borders. Vera thundered at the council. If we yield, every system will question our rule. We must retaliate. Elder Thal's gaze was heavy. Retaliation will only add corpses to the void. Humans do not bluff. They warned once. They destroyed once. Will you wager the Dominion on a second attempt? The chamber erupted in divided voices. Some demanded war, others urged caution. The galaxy watched, waiting for the Dominion's choice. Elsewhere, whispers spread of Terran strategies. On smuggler channels, rumors swirled. Humans could see into the future. Their weapons bent gravity itself. They had allied with ancient machine gods. In a pirate den on the fringes of Garath space, a grizzled captain muttered over drinks. You know what scares me? They didn't chase the survivors. Didn't press the attack. Means they weren't fighting to win, they were teaching a lesson. The room fell silent. Even pirates, who feared nothing, felt unease at the thought. Marcus, reviewing fleet readiness aboard the Resolute, shared the same thought aloud. We didn't annihilate them. We let them crawl home. Why? Harper answered with a grin. Because a bleeding enemy shouts louder than a dead one. Marcus raised his cup in mock salute. Exactly. And the louder they shout, the more the galaxy listens. Carr exhaled. So we wanted this chaos? Marcus' polite smile never faltered. Lieutenant, war isn't won by battles. It's won by narratives. And right now, every narrative ends the same way. Humanity isn't to be crossed. Weeks passed. The Dominion tried to mask weakness, parading surviving ships in rallies. But their crews trembled, veterans who had seen Terran tactics firsthand. No propaganda could erase what they had endured. Invisible drones turning fleets on themselves, weapons striking from impossible angles, human warships moving like predators through a herd. The fear spread faster than fire. Border colonies petitioned for independence. Trade partners renegotiated contracts. Rivals tested Dominion resolve. Humanity had not just bloodied their fleet, they had punctured their aura of invincibility. Back on Earth, in a subterranean command center beneath New Denver, a small group of Terran strategists reviewed reports. Marcus stood at the head of the table, projection screens glowing with galactic chatter. "We've rattled them," he said simply. "But rattling is not enough. They'll either retreat for good, or double down." An older general leaned forward. "And if they double down?" Marcus' eyes glinted with quiet resolve. "Then we spring the real trap." On Vorath Prime, the Dominion Council reconvened, arguments fiercer than before. "They bleed us with silence," Vera snapped. "Every day we hesitate, we lose standing. Humanity must be crushed before our empire unravels." "And if we fail again?" Elder Thal countered. "Then there will be no empire left to unravel." Korak, disgraced but not yet executed, raised his weary voice. "If you fight them, do not fight on their terms. They knew our formations before we deployed them. They knew our weapons before we fired. You cannot outnumber predators. You must outthink them." "But," he trailed off, crest dimming, "I fear we are not capable." The council chamber grew cold. Across the stars, whispers grew into shouts. The galaxy had seen something impossible, 30 Terran ships erasing a fleet that could conquer empires. What else lay hidden behind Earth's silence? What secrets slumbered in their dark space? In every tavern, every council chamber, every war room, the same words spread like contagion. The humans warned once. And no one knew what would happen if they were forced to warn again. On the Resolute, Marcus Hale stood at the observation deck, watching Halcyon's scarred world spin slowly below. Harper joined him, arms folded. "They're scared," she said. "Maybe scared enough to stay out." Marcus' reflection in the glass was calm, polite, unreadable. "Maybe. Or maybe pride will drag them back." He sipped his coffee, as though discussing the weather, and added softly, "Either way, we'll be ready. Because we never warned twice." The Dominion returned in force. 200 ships had not been enough. This time, they gathered 600. Dreadnoughts, carriers, war factories dragged from deep storage. It was an armada designed not to fight, but to erase. The Council's pride demanded nothing less. The galaxy watched with breath held. Some predicted Terran annihilation. Others whispered of suicide by arrogance. Few could look away. On the Resolute, alarms pulsed across the bridge. Harper's voice was steady as she read the feed. Confirmed. 600 warships crossing the line. Multiple flagships. They're serious this time. Lieutenant Carr's throat went dry. "Sir, we can't match that. 30 against 200 was impossible. 30 against 600 is." Marcus Hale cut him off, voice calm as a morning breeze. "Mathematics is rarely the deciding factor in war, Lieutenant. You've seen the lesson once. Now you'll see the conclusion." Harper studied him carefully. "You planned for this?" Marcus allowed himself the faintest smile. "Of course. The Dominion thinks the first battle was the trap. But that was only the bait." The Dominion Armada swept into Terran space like a tide of steel. At its head, Admiral Varric, chosen for ruthlessness, not caution, broadcast his declaration. Terran borders are no more. Humanity will kneel, or humanity will burn. The message echoed across the stars. Entire worlds leaned closer to their screens, waiting for the human reply. But none came. In silence, the Dominion advanced. Their fleets pushed deeper, scanning every asteroid, every derelict station. Yet the void was empty. No resistance. No human fleet in sight. Some commanders grew uneasy. Why are they not here? Admiral Varric sneered. They hide because they are weak. Push forward. So they did. Until the net closed. From the blackness beyond known space, Terran ships decloaked, not 30, not 50, but hundreds. Vessels that had never been seen, hidden for generations. Warships designed in secret shipyards carved into dead moons, armed with weapons humanity had never revealed. They had not sent their fleet to Halcyon. They had sent a fraction. On the Resolute, Marcus' voice cut across the comms, calm and deliberate. To the Dominion Armada, you were warned once. You crossed our line. This is no longer defense. This is demonstration. The trap snapped shut. Human ships moved with frightening coordination, not charging but herding. They split the Dominion's 600 into pockets, cutting supply lines, jamming comms, scattering command structures. And then came the weapons. Spinal lances of compressed plasma that bent like lightning strikes, ripping through shields as though they were paper. Hunter drones no larger than shuttles, swarming dreadnoughts and carving them open from within. Gravity mines that twisted spacetime, dragging whole formations into crushing singularities. The Dominion's numbers meant nothing. Admiral Varric screamed into his comms. Hold the line. Focus fire. Overwhelm them with mass. But the line never held. For every Terran ship destroyed, 10 Dominion vessels collapsed. Varric's command ship shuddered under impact after impact, alarms wailing. His officers shouted for retreat. Retreat. Varric spat, spines quivering. We are the Dominion. We do not flee from prey. His words barely left his mouth before his ship split apart, gutted by a spear of Terran fire. Across the galaxy, live feeds streamed from desperate Dominion broadcasts. Billions watched in stunned silence as the proudest fleet in known space was unmade not with fury, but with cold, surgical precision. The Terrans did not roar. They did not taunt. They dismantled. On the Resolute, Harper whispered, "We've broken them." Marcus' expression never changed. Not yet. Breaking is final. Right now, they're only afraid. Carr swallowed hard. What's the difference, sir? Marcus turned his gaze from the carnage to his young officer. Fear fades. Broken things don't. He tapped a command key, authorizing the final phase. Terran ships executed the maneuver without hesitation. Instead of pursuing fleeing remnants, they surrounded the survivors, cutting off escape vectors. No one slipped away. No wounded fleets limped home this time. A single transmission went out, broadcast not only to the Dominion but across the galaxy. Marcus Hale's voice, calm and clear. Terran borders are closed. Once we warned. You ignored it. Once we taught. You dismissed it. Now we show you truth. Humanity does not forgive trespass. There will be no second survivors. The comm cut. The remaining Dominion ships vanished in bursts of white fire. Silence followed. The kind of silence that crushes lungs. Across the galaxy, no one spoke for long moments. Then the panic began. Some governments scrambled to erase old treaties that mentioned Terran territory. Others cut off trade, retreating from borders with almost comical speed. Entire colonies evacuated systems near human space, not from orders, but from instinct. The Dominion Council, once thunderous with pride, met in hushed fear. Elder Thal broke the quiet. I warned you. They never speak twice. Now their silence is permanent. In the aftermath, rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed humanity commanded fleets hidden in every nebula. Others whispered that Earth itself was a fortress world capable of shattering suns. Traders swore Terran officers drank calmly while battles raged, because they already knew the outcome. But beneath all the embellishment lay one undeniable truth: the Dominion had been shattered. Their fleets gone, their pride broken, their borders collapsing inward. All because they ignored one warning. On the Resolute, Harper approached Marcus as the crew worked in disciplined quiet. "You know the galaxy will never trust us again," she said softly. Marcus stirred his coffee, steam rising like a signal. "Good. Trust is fragile. Fear lasts longer." Harper studied him. "And if someone else tries to test us?" He gave her a look that was both kind and sharp. "Then they'll learn the same lesson. Humanity doesn't warn twice." As stars drifted silently outside the viewport, Marcus Hale stood with hands folded behind his back, the picture of politeness. To the galaxy, his calm voice would forever echo as the line they should never have crossed. And across every world, from the richest capitals to the poorest colonies, a single phrase took root, whispered with reverence and dread: "Stay away from Terran space."